Okay, put it in my pocket for a minute. Ah, there be bunnies. I know. One day, kill them all. What? Nope. Okay. Sorry. You shall wait now. I need to put on gloves. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Okay, other than from a random twig, turning the stream off, we should be safe. Okay, fun times. Yesterday I did do the drone video. I even uploaded it for processing, but today I noticed something I would want to correct just a little bit. With every video that's important. For slop, you don't really worry about things like that, but or even for something that is not necessarily openly slop, but just like a grift video, you know, it doesn't really matter if there's a mistake in your video. It doesn't really matter if you make a factual mistake in your video. Like, you know, the point of a grifter video is not to make a case for why such and such thing sucks, right? It's to state that such and such thing, you know, sucks, and to present an emotional argument. Like, that's it. So even if you're wrong and you typically don't like, just like saying something that's factually incorrect, just leave it in. Like, who cares? What, are you gonna redo the video because of that? What, are you going to reword your statement? And you're literally standing on hay. It'll be very, very spongy. If you want a firmer ground for your pooping, maybe pick something like ground. You know. Okay. Good poopy pooch. Anyway. So yeah, I am currently re-rendering it. It'll probably be done in about, 10 minutes. It's been rendering for a while. Maybe at least 30 minutes or so. So yeah, it'll be ready soon. Anyway, it'll be ready by the time we're back. And I will upload it, copy paste all the metadata and stuff. But I'm not sure if it'll be out today. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Because I already did one big thing today, which is something I did last night. Should I finally post it across Zero Chapter 4 to Patreon? It's an early access. It's a zero draft. You know, I only gave it one more pass after initially drafting it, basically just for like grammar correction. And yeah, sure, I did reward certain things that were worded like utterly poorly, but no, I did not delve particularly deep into the territory of literary elevation. No, I was doing a rather general pass. And honestly, I don't know. The only real writer who wrote in this like super elevated, highly literary, sophisticated language, while also saying something with it, was J.R.R. Tolkien, of course. And I am not sure if he was just so good. I mean, obviously he was not the fastest writer in the world, obviously. But that also, you know, regardless of whether his natural speed was just slow or if it was because of the complexity of the things he was writing, yeah, he was slow. But I wonder if the specific language in which he wrote, which is very elevated, sophisticated language, but I say very elevated, but it's not like purple prose style elevated. His language is, there's some restraint in it as well. I mean, Tolkien, all things considered, was relatively self-indulgent, you know, with things he personally was fascinated with, like nature, for example. You know, you give Tolkien an opportunity to set up a scene, literally 90% of that setup will be just him describing nature. Like, oh, is there like some kind of strategic positioning of the enemy's army? Like, yeah, he'll mention it, you know, here and there, but he will literally be describing, you know, the curves of the hills and the colors of the grass, and specific what sorts, you know, what pedigrees of grass, you know, and on which side of the hill are growing. Like, he will spend all of the time, basically, you give him, like, as much time as you can give him, he will take all of it to, you know, like, he's like Bob Ross, basically, you know. It's like, what's your picture about? It's just some nature, you know. That was basically Tolkien. That's all he wanted. Yeah, you know, that's all he ever. Well, that's not really a thing. Obviously, Tolkien wanted to tell a, you know, story that had meta meaning, you know, in the meta world, meta meaning. Obviously, Tolkien was absolutely obsessed with the idea of the myth. But as a writer, yeah, like, when people say Tolkien is just too much, they mean they cannot get through like 10 pages of him describing the forest. That's what they mean. So, all things considered, I would call Tolkien self-indulgent, like, honestly. It's kind of like, you know how especially in modern media, Gen X started it, like Chuck, how do you say it, Palahniuk? He started this thing, definitely. He popularized it 100%. I would say probably King started it. Well, again, Gen X, you know, a generation of apathy, generation of we hate everything sucks, nothing matters. Generation of postmodernism, essentially. You know, and King really started that thing where you would be reading, you know, a novel by Stephen King, and then suddenly there's like a paragraph about how everything sucks and nothing matters, and this thing that currently happening is just stupid. And I'm like, okay, thank you, narrator, for your personal opinion. Can we get back to the story, please? You know, Tolkien would never do something like that, because Tolkien was the greatest generation. He was not a fucking self-indulgent Xer. And don't get it, boomers were self-indulgent as well, but boomers were idealistic. Boomers thought they solved all the problems of the world, and they knew, they mastered ethics and morals, right? And X, like Fight Club. You know, Fight Club is the Bible of the Generation X. Nirvana is, you know, Kurt Cobain is the Jesus of Generation X. You know, everything sucks, nothing matters. And despite the fact that Generation X inherited this world just absolutely ripe with open doors for creative output, like so many creative people, you know, are from the Generation X, because you could actually be creative. Even if you went out of your way to create something like Nirvana today, okay, you'd get 10 views on YouTube, whoop-de-doo, you know? Like, nothing like that can ever be done again. Like, yeah, sure, other viral successes can happen again in the current era, but not like that. You know, not basically on the point, on the level where someone talented, someone creative started doing something, and then it just picked up. You know, no. You have to be doing slop, you have to be doing grift, in the modern era. You have to, conform to the culture of the internet. You can no longer create culture. Xers, like those Xers that had creativity in them, they inherited the world where that creativity was rewarded AF. And then they resented all of it. They put most of their creative energy into nihilism, into dunking on the very concept of anything mattering at all, hence nirvana. But anyway, obviously Tolkien, Chuck Palahniuk, obviously very self-indulgent writer. All of his books are basically him finding ways to express his personal opinions, including political. And King is kind of the same way, only it's mostly fetishes. Palahniuk also writes about his own fetishes, like all the time. That's probably goal number one of his, right? And for King, it's not necessarily goal number one. He just cannot help himself. As a Generation X, he cannot help himself but to insert remarks into his own craft. He cannot detach. He cannot detach the process of creation from the act of dunking on the idea of a competent creation in and of itself, right? Because he's Generation X. So, yeah, Tolkien, when I say self-indulgent, it's not like Tolkien at any point, stops the story and goes into even one paragraph, let alone multiple paragraph, explanation for how, young people in Britain today are all stupid and dumb and they don't understand good things and they like crap. He never does that, unlike Generation X writers. So, yeah. And boomers were basically talking about because boomers didn't care about good literature. So, yeah. Boomers only cared about making Star Trek and making the whole thing that's been since for some reason remembered as this prime example of very sophisticated and mature speculative sci-fi, when in reality it's like every single thing about it is just an allegory for some kind of political or social struggle boomers had in California in the 20th century. Isn't it fun how every single problem in TNG is being presented by Troy or Riker saying, yes, it's just like that thing. It's just like that thing in the 20th century. Oh, those silly 20th century people had this debate about this topic. Especially those on the right side of the politics. Oh, those guys were so stupid. Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, so basically boomers, it's just LARP. Like TNG is just LARP. Like it's just boomers pretending that they are so enlightened, they might as well be from the 24th century. And here, now that we have presented the setting, from the elevation of that setting, we will now teach everyone what we know about ethics. And we will solve all the specific, not just in general. Again, they don't talk generalities because that would be philosophy if you did that. But no, boomers spoke in specific allegories and specific examples, right, of things that existed in the 20th century, and somehow all of those things are so important that they keep popping up in the 24th, and we have to readdress them. We have to readdress them by Picard explaining that money is no longer a thing. Like, yeah, you mean like somebody who got frozen in the 20th century, right? And they would be unfrozen 400 years later. Like, what the fuck did the boomer think? That people were so stupid back then? That wasn't even like 50s or 60s when people were hardly exposed to speculative sci-fi or just speculative fiction in general, hardly at all. Like, no, that was in the 80s. Like, you're telling me people couldn't understand, like, the idea is that there would be somebody who got frozen in the 20th century, maybe even 21st, actually, it would make sense, right? And then they were basically brought 400 years into the future, and they get unfrozen, and they What do you mean my bank account no longer exists? It is just such a straw man, like down talking, boomer splaining ethics. I fucking hate Star Trek for that. I love the idea of TNG. If TNG was what people actually say it is, as though it is this highly idealistic, very hopeful and rich, exercise in world building in sci-fi, with these like very professional people, very detached people, very calm people with no personal drama at all. Yeah, right. Solving these moral problems, and moral problems, that don't have like a black and white solution. Something you cannot say in 2025, black and white solution. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, no, that's not TNG. I don't know. Maybe TNG becomes something like that around season 5. I watched first 3 seasons of TNG, and it's just boomer splaining. Oh, it's the idea. It's like, Worf, you were raised by a human family. And like, it is my understanding that in Earth culture, woman does the cooking. Like, what the fuck? It's just, the whole thing is just fake. It's like Uncharted. You know how you play Uncharted 4 and like every single encounter, if you take 2 steps to the right, 5 people will spawn behind the corner on the right. But if you never do that, what do you know? Those people never spawn. Like, the whole thing is just orchestrated, for you. The whole thing is just fake. There's no encounter. There's no encounter. It's just experiences being generated for you in real time, as you go, with the main criteria, making sure that things are happening for you, and you can never outsmart. The idea is that enemies are coming. Okay, what if I just like flank them? No, you cannot flank them. Okay, but what if I do? If you do, the game will spawn 50 enemies behind you and insta-kill you. Okay, cool. Why would you even design a game with something like that in mind? Well, that's a good question, right? Why would you even bother doing something like that? Just wasting, resources. Make one encounter and, allow the player to solve it. Nope. Like, those people are so detached from the idea of game design, of player experience, that they will spend additional resources literally taking gameplay opportunities away from like the systems that they have in their own game, that they could just let those systems be and let them exist in the sandbox and function. No, they need to manually put like, gates to where the system can spill out into a little bit of a player agency. Like, we cannot have that. Yeah, all right. Okay, anyway. So I was talking, right, about how, Tolkien was not like extremely elevated, but everything he did felt poetic. And like, Tolkien had a lot of elevated shit, but Tolkien did not feel like, he did not feel purple. He did not feel like someone, LARPing as a bard at your D&D table. He did not write like that at all, which is pretty much how I write, I suppose, a lot of the time. But I try to stay consistent, and I try to, have restraint, but I can never do it like Tolkien. Tolkien, like, also could write something that was very brief, and yet it still felt like, it still felt poetic, and it felt elevated also. Because there's briefness also, sometimes in, like, literally chopping off, like, the second half of the sentence. We're being told to leave, Pul. Come on. There's and okay, so what I was talking about, right, is that I don't know if we literally, come on. What I wonder, okay? What I wonder if Tolkien obviously wrote slowly. But here's what I wonder. I wonder if the fact that he wrote in this elevated literary language was part of the reason for why he wrote slowly, or if the whole thing came organic to him and most of his slow speed could be attributed to, well, just the fact that he was writing rather complex, interconnected things, full of meaning, and not just like random details that will then never come up later and actually don't mean anything. If you put them together, the lore will end up contradicting itself, yada yada. No. Right? So, I don't know, but definitely the way I write, when I have a big structural idea for a plot, I have a pretty good understanding that, okay, this is what needs to happen. Even when I start on the process of basically writing like a synopsis for myself, I often end up going into so many detail. I essentially end up just drafting a chapter, only instead of drafting a chapter, in the language that I would write a chapter, it is just written in like plain language. And that's what professionally is called zero draft. And I don't know. I don't know if a lot of writers do that. I wonder specifically if Tolkien did it, because like his language is very purposeful. You read something like King, or you read something like Sanderson, and they're obviously just write as fast as they can. Obviously they have better way with words than most like people, obviously, because they have so much practice. But if you want to write something like Tolkien, you cannot just write it, at the same speed you can think it. Like, there's probably needs to be some deliberation. There probably needs to be some thought process put into the whole thing. But here's what I wonder. I wonder if Tolkien was actually so good with English that he was just writing like that. That was his normal mode. He couldn't write like a normie like Sanderson, or like Salvatore. I wonder. But anyway, yeah, you read someone like Sanderson, and that's a zero draft, essentially. So you just sit down and you write, okay, he picked up a sword. The sword looked all right. Okay, then he said, ooh, everyone awed, when he was giving his speech. And yeah, I understand that sounded really bad right now, but even... Even when you're in a hurry, you can kind of like think of, ways to put it on paper quickly so that it doesn't sound quite as dumb. And then, of course, all those people have editors, multiple ones, in fact, probably because, like when you write multiple books a year, there is no way you have the time to then edit your own books. Because to shit out a zero draft, like, yeah, I can imagine doing that in a year, for an entire book. If you are on enough cocaine, which is what Stephen King does, like, you can probably do multiple. Yeah, of course. Or, like, it doesn't even have to be cocaine. Stephen King is, he has been so successful for so long. He has access to all kinds of just, like, medical, procedures that clear his brain, that make sure his body, stays functioning, that he doesn't get a random heart attack. If he does, he will be 100 years old when it happens. So yeah, it's just like boomers, Gen Xers, they have access to like Ozempic and stuff like, have you seen like Tom Segura recently? Like, yeah, we're gonna believe that, right? Like all those people, they have access like to all this medical technology that will keep them alive forever. And it's not just boomers that do it. Ooh, boomers, they drink the blood of the young to stay alive forever. Yeah, Gen Xers don't do that, you think? Okay, so... yeah, of course those people are going to be hyper productive. Of course those people are going to be hyper fast. Well, yeah, productive, same thing. Those people will be super concentrated, they will be super productive, they'll be able to shit out multiple books a year because Stephen King doesn't do his own groceries. He doesn't cook for himself. He doesn't need to, and you say, well, he went through that before he got to the point where he had all the success in the world. No, he was a coke addict, right? During the times when you could be a coke addict. Try being a coke addict today, you get arrested fucking tomorrow, and thrown in jail for the rest of your life. Well, I know that's not literally how it happens, but I mean, if you try to be even half a degenerate boomers and Gen Xers were before they, raised enough capital to ascend over the normie society, which is now basically just like fucked over millennials. You did have the things. If you did fucking tenth of what boomers did before the age of 35, you'd be dead in prison. In high security prison. And with Xers, it's not quite as bad, but the same type of rule applies anyway. Yeah, and like I said, when people like King succeeded, the temperature of the market was completely different. You actually could write something and then show it to somebody who might evaluate it and decide to put it on the bookshelf. Try writing fucking anything and even get in contact in the first place with a literary agent. Like, there are plenty of literary agents out there. Try actually having a dialogue with some of them. I promise you, they will all reject you unless you already have some kind of credential that's big. If you're a celebrity and you want to write a book, yeah, easy. Publishers will pick you up, literary agents will be happy to work with you, but no, otherwise, no. So yeah, those people definitely are very fast at working. They're highly productive. They feel great. Although that's actually questionable because, like, Ozempic makes you unable to eat. Like, all those people, they're so slim because they literally cannot eat. They just throw up if they try. And they probably throw up even if they don't try to eat. Like, as a creative, how the fuck are you going to be able to think and perform if you, first of all, don't eat in the first place, so you have energy, to think. But then even if you do, you still feel nauseous. Like, how are you going to, like, I don't know, as a power slave, I can kind of imagine just powering through it. But as anyone who does anything even remotely intellectual, like, how are you gonna perform if you're on Ozempic? I don't know. But you can see, right, that people with resources, people like Joe Rogan, like Joe Rogan feels great. Why? Because he's rich. Because his diet is completely different from yours, because he has all kind of shit, in his kitchen, and in his medicine drawer that you don't have, that keep him hyper productive. And back in the day, it was cocaine. Back in the day, it was cocaine and being degenerate and being in the market that was rewarding creativity and rewarding effort. And now it's, it's just, people who have access to shit, they divide and conquer, corners of the market or whatever, or creative spaces. And the rest of us, we're just, left to fight against the system that actively poisons us, makes our brain rot, makes our brain not work. So yeah. But even, listen, there is no way Stephen King edits himself. No, he writes a manuscript as a zero draft, and then that shit gets pushed onto the editor. Stephen King never even opens his own novel again. Like, that's it. He probably even forgets he wrote it. So yeah, you could do that, right? But obviously, Tolkien, for example, he did not have editors. I mean, he technically did, but what he was doing with those editors, he was fighting against them, de-elevating, his prose. He was fighting against them from dumbing down his writing. Those people weren't there to correct it. Those people were there to spell check, sure, but that's about all the good they did. Everything else, they actually fucked things over. And they did the same thing that, like, ChatGPT would do to you now. If you were to ask ChatGPT to be, like, really creative, it would just start randomly changing details because it, like, maybe assumed that you were trying to say something else because there's a typo. So, like, a whole paragraph will be rephrased and the meaning will completely change. And you're like, what the fuck? That's not what I wrote. You know, have you ever tried like to do like ChatGPT? Could you like? Well, obviously you did. It's the year 2025. Like, could you do? Like, could you see if that's okay? And ChatGPT will be, oh, your email is totally fine, but it could benefit from some, like with just a few fixes, you can majorly improve clarity of it. And it just gives you a letter that's a completely different letter. And like, okay, cool, maybe the language here is more professional and better or whatever, but first of all, it's fake, right? Because ChatGPT will insert this like fake soy, friendly guy energy into the whole thing, which is like, dude, I'm not a boomer, I'm not a Gen Xer, I'm not doing the whole pretend, hi, how are you? Like, I'm not doing that anymore, okay? No one does who's below the age of 40. Like, we're done with that shit. We're not playing by those silly debasing rules. Because there's no point. The system will not reward us for that. We play by the rules, we get fucked. We don't play by the rules, we at least get to keep our, I don't know, little bit of self-respect, maybe, So yeah, anyway. Yeah, so there will be that energy inserted into the letter, first of all, and then, baby Jesus forbid there's any kind of typo or anything. Like, ChatGPT might reinterpret like an entire, paragraph into something you weren't even meant to say at all. Because of that, because of something like that. Absolutely it could, and it would. So that's what, Tolkien editors were basically doing to him. They were absolutely ruining what he was trying to do. Yeah, like, thanks for the spell check, I suppose, but... Well, Aini, you have to go back. Okay, now don't go back. Yeah, thanks for the spell check, right? But he was super unhappy with, like, rewrites that they suggested. And from what I understood, from how it was described in historical documents, he was basically like super fucking angry with them. He was furious at those fuckers because they were just doing like, Tolkien wasn't particularly young, and I am not that old, and my bullshit sensitivity is just through the roof. I take zero nonsense these days. Like, my fuse is so short. If something is just outright stupid, meaning, I do something that obviously I put in A, what needs to come out as B, and instead, like, EDFC G comes out, I'm ready to burn the fucking world down. Like, I'm done. I'm done with that. I don't want to be part of that system anymore, Yeah, so that's why I can no longer do customer support, by the way, because customer support people have no idea what they're doing. They don't have access to fucking anything, You try to get like customer support from your internet people, and it's not even your internet people, it's call center in India. And they don't have actual access to like all the network like API. They just have a special dashboard for them that has very limited access to anything that amounts to maybe like one step above the kind of thing that you have access to in the first place. And like what they do, they can reboot your router remotely. Well, what do you know? I can reboot my router remotely also from my phone. So like there's literally nothing those people can do. All you can do with those people is to just ignore everything they say and keep telling them, shit's not working, send me the new thing. Shit's not working, send me the new thing. No, I tried that, didn't work. Can I please have a new router? Like, that's all they're good for. If your problem can be fixed by something like that, or another thing, no, that shit doesn't work. I need to schedule a guy to come here and check my line. No, I need a professional here. I need a serviceman here. No, I tried that. I just tried that. I promise it didn't work. Can I please book a tech visit? Like, that's all you can do. Just lie to them. Always, like, because otherwise it's just ridiculous. They will remotely reboot your router and say, "Oh, I see that you have the internet now." Bitch, I had the internet fucking a second ago also. Just a connection breaks 6 times a minute. Like, yeah, that's all they do for you. Highly unhelpful. And yeah, I don't have any patience for those people at all. Like, I'm done. First of all, it's 2025, so why are those things getting worse rather than better? And second, I've already been through the era when those things were bad. So I'm not gonna go through the era when they are even worse. Like, listen, if the system was at least rewarding me in some other ways, you know? Like, yeah, sure. The water is now poison, but at least I have access to, like, you know, a powerful enough computer to render all the videos I wanted to do my entire life. Like, yeah, you know, no. There is no reward, there is no trade-off. It's just everything is worse. And like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, right, so I don't know how Tolkien wrote. I don't know if he had such a thing as a zero draft, or if this literary Tolkien language, it's very unmistakably his. No one else wrote like him. Like, Lewis didn't write like Tolkien. Herbert didn't write like Tolkien. They actually wrote in a relatively contemporary English that wouldn't be that far off. Wouldn't be that weird for even like a modern reader to experience today. Like, no, it feels totally fine. But Tolkien, no. Tolkien wrote not like the Greatest Generation. The Greatest Generation wrote like anyone else, pretty much. You know, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 60s and even in the 50s, people still wrote pretty much the same way they do today. It's not that different, no. I mean, obviously it is different from like highly contemporary writers like King or Sanderson. Yeah, of course. It was a little bit more sophisticated. It was a little bit more dense and complex and strong. You know, it had a strong style to it. But generally speaking, like, no. If you like compare, you know, those writers to Tolkien, and you like it reads like Tolkien is not the Greatest Generation. It reads like Tolkien is from like 1800s or something. You know, it doesn't read like his from the actual, you know, mid 20th century. So I wonder if he just wrote like that, or if he did painstakingly and slowly wordsmith every single sentence in a very purposeful statement. Like, for him, if he were to write a letter to somebody, like, that kind of language would not feel natural, because yeah, people do not speak like that, you know. People do not talk like that, and they do not write like that. So I wonder if it was natural for him, or if he also had to, you know, actively fight against his, you know, natural way of talking in order to craft prose like that. Well, what I know is that the prose that I craft, yeah, I have to do that. So occasionally I end up with a zero draft, which is... Are you done, Pucci? You want to go for a little bit more of a walk? Because if not, I'm going to close the gate. Yeah, it doesn't come as natural to me, definitely. Well, come on, shoot. Okay, then you have to come here with me so I can close the gate. There is no point for you to fight me. You just follow me, you know, you follow the leader. That's how it works. So yeah, sometimes the first draft does end up pretty elevated. Absolutely, sometimes it does. But sometimes I end up with this thing that is just completely zero draft. And Well, what I uploaded yesterday, I'm actually not quite sure if I would call it a draft or a zero draft. It definitely started like one, but after a quick grammar pass, which was accompanied by corrections here and there, maybe I could call it as just a draft, as in it is not literally written in plain language. It is a little bit literary. So, yeah. Anyway, whatever it was, I did upload it, so it is there. When will I give it another pass? And is it even a good thing that I'm doing it? Like, isn't it fake? Am I faking my own writing ability by doing this, you know, sentence by sentence elevation pass? I think that's how you write, you know, when you want to write something meaningful. That's definitely how philosophers write. Like, good philosophers, they don't just sit down and shit out whatever their inner monologue is on the paper. They painstakingly, you know, make sentence after sentence. I mean, I don't know, maybe they do. Some of them definitely do. Like Marx, for example, if you could call him a philosopher. He's a grifter, not a philosopher, but still. I'm pretty sure it's okay. I'm pretty sure it's part of the process. I'm pretty sure it's not against the rules to write a chapter at first as like a skeleton type of thing, and then elevate it to the actual literary language you want the whole thing to be in. Aini, could you stop already? I'm trying to make you stop. So I need to unhook you. Boom. There he goes. There goes Speed Racer. My wife's name is Mom. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it's like for me? Okay. Yeah, so I did upload that, and chapter 5 will actually soon follow. I don't know how soon, but definitely in January. Okay. Never say definitely, because I do have that music, you know, LP I need to finish. But it should be relatively quick if I actually put my effort into it, and I plan on, because I don't really have much else to do. The live drone video will go up either later today or tomorrow. Also later, which would also be later, right? And that live video is like it's like 50% of the main track from the upcoming LP. In fact, that track will be the entirety of the LP, and then I will have B-sides as a separate release. Yep, that's how I decided to do it. So yeah, that's those are the plans. Chapter 4, Zero Draft on Patreon. Chapter 5, Zero Draft will follow soon. Then I will, of course, elevate those, elevate both of them. And yeah, the live drone video on my YouTube channel is later today, or maybe tomorrow. Not 100% sure, but we'll see. It is done, and just needs to be uploaded, but you know, I may get distracted while it's processing, and then when it's processed, it's like 3 in the morning, and then do I want to post at 3 in the morning? It shouldn't really matter when you post, but maybe it matters. And since, you know, it's a very purposeful video, I do want to, you know, release it properly, and because I don't grift out videos like that every day. So yeah, obviously on Patreon there will be an update when the video goes live, and there will be towards the end of the, well, closer to the new year, you know, day. Not sure when, maybe early January, maybe, you know, later in December, there will be a post that covers all of that, you know, across zero, cloud them also, and the LP coming and the drone video released. It will all be summarized in a sit-rep Patreon post. Okay, bye-bye.